think the CAMEL model offers us the opportunity to bring people together in a way they might not have thought of doing before. I guess when we started with the model, we were thinking of how it had been used in a particular context where people did the same sort of job. In a sense, we've brought slightly dissimilar people together and bringing higher education together with further education, but in the process we've discovered the things which they have in common, and that's quite a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's quite interesting, the mix between FE and HE. I've certainly found that FE focuses really about delivery, and the focus of activity is about working with a particular learner, with a set of learners. And so therefore when we come up to making a strategy, it's about trying to fit all these different needs into one. HE world, my impression of, is that we think about the pedagogy more, and there's much more interest in the kind of higher level ideas of what teaching and learning are about. And that's involved, that comes up in all the conversations people have about how e-learning works. FE is just a little bit more practical. People are thinking about what technologies are out there and then how they will work with learner A.
I think there's a real divide actually between FE and HE. There are perceptions in HE that are just not correct, they're ill-founded. And equally there are perceptions in FE who often, I think, feel like the poor neighbour to HE, which is a shame. In terms of practice, what I've learned from the two visits to FE colleges is that I think they're much more inventive than we are in HE. The sorts of things they're doing are much more interesting in many ways. I think they focus much more on meeting a particular need, much more focused on the learner. Whereas, I'm not saying that doesn't happen in HE, but I just feel that HE is more concerned with research into e-learning as a concept than actually engaging in real interesting practices that meet real needs. So I think we've got an awful lot to learn from FE.
I think the other thing which has been very, very useful in terms of selecting the institutions has been making sure that all the people are not in competition with one another, because I think that if they were competitive you wouldn't get the same sort of disclosure and sharing that's been happening.
Coming from an FE background, working with FE institutions, you get to sort of maybe collaborate with those, but you don't necessarily get the cross-sector collaboration. And I think working in a CAMEL project like this, it's been really useful to actually break down possible barriers or perceptions of barriers that people have had with regard to what happens in FE and what happens in HE. Through CAMEL we've actually learnt that there are a lot of similarities between what we do in institutions, and that's been really effective and very useful to understand.
I think there are strengths of both kinds of institutions in terms of further and in terms of higher. We have different types of cultures, we have different understandings in terms of students' needs and in terms of our purposes. And I think the bringing together of the one kind of institution with the other, further and higher together, actually bridges the gap, if you like, usefully for teachers, but ultimately for learners themselves. I think each has learned and benefited from the other in really quite unexpected ways.